In this video, I'm going to talk about all the ways you can improve your art if you think your art has become stagnant, you haven't seen any art growth in a significant way. The reason why I want to talk about this is I was thinking about my art path and all the times I improved or wasn't improving. And I noticed that my art only improved when I took on bigger projects, when I got more ambitious, when I did projects that were more difficult, when the concepts were harder to work out, when the compositions were more difficult, when there were more characters, when there were more subjects, when there was more difficult lighting, when it was harder to approach conceptually. That's when my art improved the most. Or even when they were bigger in scale. When you're doing a lot of small art projects, it doesn't necessarily challenge your skill set. If you're doing 6 months worth of easy projects that basically they kind of adhere to your strengths and your interests, it's not stretching or working any muscles, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's not your visual library or your art fundamentals that maybe you lack some skill in that you need to get better at. Well, if you're not working on things that you need to get better at, say it's your perspective or it's your lighting, that's not really making you better. Of course, there's going to be quality if you're already strong in that skill set, but if that's, I think, a big reason why you are not evolving. Your art is not evolving. Your art is not getting better. You are not understanding how maybe it's lighting or color that you don't know enough of. If you're going to be working a bunch of black and white all the time and you're only using grayscales, that's why you're not getting it better at color. That's not why you're not getting better at lighting. It's why you're not understanding the fundamentals of lighting. Or if you're not studying books on how light works, that's why you're not getting better. The very essence of art growth is incremental. Through the process of study and practicing and making art, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. However, the caveat I think people that don't improve over a long period of time miss is they stick to the same recipe and don't evolve and explore different styles, techniques, and methods. Take for example, and again, I know they're not the same industry, but take for example a chef. If he's not trying out new recipes, if he always sticks to the same course, people are going to say this person's stagnated. That's all they do well. They're not going to grow within their culinary skills. They're not going to evolve their repertoire, right, of what they do well. When that happens, you're going to feel that what you do is not evolving in a significant way. I follow a lot of artists who are basically doing the same style for the last 5-6 years and they're not evolving. Because they are not trying out new skills. They aren't studying new skills. They've become stagnant. They don't want to learn because learning is really hard. You don't need to study that much, in my opinion. You need to just learn a few different approaches of how to maybe render something, or say you do anime but you want to learn how to paint in a painterly style or more realistic style, right? More realism. There is not much to it, you know what I mean? You need to get better at like soft edges and hard edges. How do you do that? And whether it's traditional or digital, what brushes do I use? How do I move my brush, and how do I do that, with the paint load and all these things, right? Like athletes, when they're playing the game, they can't just play a certain way. Like things adapt, the style of play adapts. You have to go along with that program in a way, you know what I mean? You always have to be learning new techniques, you know what I mean? Concept art, a lot of it moved to photo manipulation, right? Or photo bashing, right, as they call it. Like so a lot of concept artists had to learn how to photo bash and how to do it properly. They had to incorporate photo packs, you know what I mean? They're downloading probably hundreds of photo packs just to keep up with the demand of how the concept art industry switched up. Also, they had to incorporate 3D, so then they had to learn 3D. It's just I think if you're not learning new techniques, again, I'm not saying I'm talking to all artists, so I'm just giving you an example of how you can evolve and improve. You can take what you learned from these things that you're learning, whether you use them or not. You can take something from them and you can add that to your art, and you can take these fundamental skills and this fundamental knowledge of these art fundamentals and take them into your art and how you go about composing your art and how you think about how new styles you can create. You can take that and you can become a different artist by just, I mean, very loosely going over new mediums, you know what I mean, new styles. So and I think that's the biggest challenge for artists is we get too comfortable with our own style. We work so long to get our own, art style, right? And that's very important, especially nowadays in the age of AI, is that your art style is everything of what you've basically, it's the accumulation of everything you learned, and more importantly, it's the accumulation of everything you didn't learn. That's also why you have a style, because it's also the things that you don't know. And sometimes the things that you don't know can help your art. For some reason, it makes your art the way your art looks. It's your style, right? It's also what you didn't learn. And I think that through that process of developing those skills, in order to even evolve past that and to learn more, you have to scale those like big mountains of knowledge, right? It's going to take some work from you, right? It's going to take some free time from you and some time to study and practice that and draw in a different way that you usually don't draw. What's great about learning things that you're not necessarily like really good at, like a master at, is you attempt to create that is beyond your skill set. You're always going to be good at your art style, but try something different that isn't yours, or maybe you can learn something new. Why that's so important is you're going to see that new art piece that you did is crap in that new style. And why is that so important? Because you see that you can gauge your weaknesses. You cannot gauge your weaknesses when you're doing something that you were so good at. You can't, because how are you gonna judge that? Everything you do in your style is always, for the most part, gonna look good, right? Because you're so strong in it. But if you feel like you're stagnating, you have to allow yourself to do bad art and do art that you don't really do. You doing that bad art and trying to learn a new skill or a new technique or a new method is the best way to assess what you need to get good at and what you need to work on. Self-assessment is just the foundation of being the best artist you can be. You know what I mean? If you're not doing that regularly, you are going to become that artist that is just not evolving. Like you're doing the same stuff all the time. The best artists that I know, even like, it could be like Art Germ or like, if you're familiar with Action Hank Beard, they will start doing maybe more complicated compositions. You know what I mean? They'll start doing different perspectives. I mean, literally from different angles, drawing from different angles. They're trying to reach a new summit. You know what I mean? Like they want to go beyond. They want to go further beyond than they've than the art that they've done before. That's the thing about great artists, is they don't get lost in their own sauce. They're for the most part very humble. I mean, a lot are have their egos, but I'm saying they're humble about it, probably with themselves. They're their biggest critic. You know what I mean? Like they don't allow themselves to lose focus and pay attention to all their fans. In closing, I think that you need to have greater ambition in the pieces that you work. You need to figure out where you want to take your art from there, and you have to know that it's going to be hard to improve upon your art, and you really do have to scale those huge mountains of knowledge that you just haven't grasped yet, and that is going to take some work. In closing, the most consistent thing you can do to improve your art, in my opinion, is to tackle those ambitious ideas, something that you have never done before. You really do have to go to these uncomfortable areas where you are just scared to go there because you believe you do not have the skill to do it. How are you going to do something that's so ambitious and something that is beyond your art skill if you never attempt to do that art skill? It's all incremental, so you have to keep doing those harder pieces little by little. And again, you can't find out whether you're there or not until you do that piece, until you attempt that piece. So that is the biggest way, the easiest way to get there. And I know it sounds cliche, it sounds so simple, it sounds like it can't be that simplistic. Well, it's not. It's going to take a lot of bad art, you know what I mean? But you only get there by attempting to scale those mountains, right? You will never know if you don't get out of that. I don't know how to do backgrounds because I don't know proper perspective. Well, guess what? You're gonna have to learn perspective. You know what I mean? Like, it can be really hard for some people, but that's how you find out what kind of artist you're gonna be and how good you can be, by trying to learn all of these things. It's not gonna be immediate. You have to aspire, though, to create more complicated pieces, more complicated compositions by adding more subject. These things are all understood by practicing them, by attempting them over and over again. Doing a bad piece or a good piece, these are all mirrors. They're a reflection of where you're at with your art at the moment, right? That does more for your art than doing a bunch of good art. You know what I mean? It's kind of obvious, but that's the truth. Like, doing bad art is the best teacher. You know, the cliche line, like, failure is the best teacher. Well, it's the truth. You hitting it with all those really great pieces that you're good at, that's easy. You know, anyone could do that. You know what I mean? Oh, let me do something that I do well. You know, like, that's not going to teach you much, right? I'm not saying that it has to be hard needlessly. I'm just saying it has to challenge what you already know and expose what you don't. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you liked it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.